We're going to connect it. It's definitely going to connect. All right. So we're live right now, and we haven't really started the discussion yet, but just wanted to go live and get the links out there. So I'm going to go off camera for a moment so I can grab a link. All right. You can still hear me, but you can't see me. Is that correct? So I'm grabbing
No, I
this
can't see
link.
you. No, I can't see you. No.
Right. So, and that's okay. So I'm grabbing a link so I can start sharing it around. Share, copy. All right. So I'm gonna send this out, and hopefully, and by the time I get back from doing this, then what's gonna happen is I'm gonna post that right now, and people will be able to get on there. And
that's on your main page, yeah?
Yeah, that should be on my main page. And I just did a Hootsuite share out to my other pages as well. And we have one person watching, and I should be popping right back. There we are. All right. So we're ready to begin. If you're watching this and you want to spend a little social digital currency, that would be really awesome. So this is something I want to encourage everybody to do. Is part of what it takes to grow the game is to like things, share them, invite people to things, especially the free things. That's a great way to grow the game. So spend your social digital currency. It only takes a moment and it doesn't cost you anything, but it can be quite influential. So, all right, Ryan, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, hey guys, it's Ryan here from Tennis Marketer, and I am here to help people grow their businesses, develop and market their businesses if anyone wants to reach out. But we're here to talk about brain function and brain activity and how we can improve that in regards to our general life, but also our tennis life. So thanks for jumping on, Bill.
Awesome. I'm having a cramp in my hip right now, so let me get.
Oh, that's not good.
No, it's not no good. So I'm just gonna change position.
I've never had that before, actually.
Yeah. What's that?
I've never had a cramp in my hip. I've only had them in my calves and quads.
All right. Okay. So I think I got it figured out now. So that's good.
And where did you put that other link that you were looking for? Because I can't find it.
It's well, I'm currently live on my main Facebook, also on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So you can grab it from my profile. And, yes, like Ryan was saying, we're going to talk about the fundamentals of brain function, but specifically in how that applies to a tennis player. But then the funny thing is you can take some of these things and you can generalize them to real life and other sports and whatnot. So, yeah, I think we're gonna definitely give you some actionable items here, things that you can do to improve your performance.
Excellent. So, let's start with how we can improve our brain in general life.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've been reminded of, I'm taking a certificate in the fundamentals of neuroscience with Harvard Extension, and it's not particularly an exclusive thing. Anybody can sign up for it, so it's really a great thing to do. But I was reminded that your brain is like a battery, so it's these electrical impulses that are all happening, and there are more connections in your brain than there are stars in the sky. So your brain is this immensely complex machinery of electrical impulses. And so that's really where to start, is to take care of that thing. And what does it need more than anything else? It needs water.
More than anything else.
More than anything else,
your brain. I would guess sleep. Yeah.
Well, it does need sleep, but without water, your brain's not going to dry up and not conduct quite so well. And whether we rank these things or not, I mean, forgive me if I'm, overstating one thing over another, but, yes, absolutely, sleep is incredibly important. But thinking of your brain as a battery and as something that needs to be recharged and prepared and rested and not overused, it's a really important basis, a really great place to start. So yes, keeping your brain well hydrated and making sure that you're getting enough sodium, which I think is a little shocking because people usually talk about the ills of a high sodium diet, but to the high performer, sodium is essential. So you really need to make sure that you're getting enough salt in your diet, because you're going to burn through that. And there's some other chemical processes that take place in your brain. So there's this interaction between sodium and potassium and the water and all of that. But one thing also people don't realize is that even though magnesium doesn't exist inside your brain so much, inside your neurons, it is a major chemical it's a major promoter of every chemical process in your body. So getting enough magnesium is important. And from my understanding so far is that magnesium is the one mineral that we burn through the most easily. So it's not people don't always replace their magnesium at the same rate that they would their potassium or sodium.
So what is enough sodium and what's enough magnesium? So you don't want to have too much, I guess.
This is true. And, I am not a licensed nutritionist, nor am I that deep into the science of exact levels. So I'm just going to leave it at this, do your own research as to what's safe for you. And everybody's different. So very important to consult your doctor. Find a really good doctor who cares about these things enough to give you great information instead of information that's just good enough. Here's an example. Charlotte Alabaster is really an amazing doctor, and she's very well connected in tennis, and she works with a lot of young athletes. And one of her main messages is that the minimum requirements for iron are so ridiculously low that that's not enough iron for an athlete. So the iron levels of young athletes should probably be anywhere from 5 to 10 times what the minimum amount is to be so-called healthy. So don't rely on the levels of, what is minimal for basic health. Think about, optimal levels for what's going to be having you perform at your highest level. And yes, far be it from me to tell you exactly what those are. So do the research, get some, find a great doctor who can help you out with this. And that can be a really good thing to do.
Maybe we could get someone on live sometime to explain what levels you'd need on a guideline depending on age and performance levels, etc.
Well, it's a great question, and I'm not afraid to say I don't know. But this is a question that will have to be answered at some point. So, as I do my research, if I happen to stumble upon that answer, then I will be better armed for the next time when we meet.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so moving on, I've heard that 25% of your energy you use a day goes to your brain.
Yes. So that's sort of stunning because, we generally assume that our brain's not using a tremendous amount of calories. It's just this jelly. It's just this hardened, almost... it's this jello-like substance in our head, and it's not really doing anything. But in reality, yes, 25 to even 30% of our energy calorie consumption is from our brain. So if you sit and you're reading difficult things and your brain is having to process that, then your brain is definitely using up a lot of energy. And now if we apply that to tennis, tennis is so interesting because of the complexity of things that need to happen. When you're a tennis player, you're the head coach, you're the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, you're the goalie, the midfielder, and the striker, and you're playing. There's this myriad of skills that you have to be able to have because you're playing offense and defense and calling the plays and having to make very quick decisions in a short period of time repeatedly, and sometimes for up to a minute. I mean, you could have a really lengthy point of 24, 25 shots, and that's going to take a tremendous toll on your brain power because of all those decisions that went into all of those shots cumulatively, and then you kind of get the brain drain. I think that speaks to why long points tend to be points where momentum is gained or lost, because people put too much importance into them because of the mental and emotional investment. So one thing I teach my players to do is to say, okay, you lost a tough point. That's, that it's not the end of the world, because if the other player double faults on the next point, then it's 1-1. So, and then you put no effort into that. So don't put, even though, yes, you do have to invest a lot of energy into the point in order to win it. Once you haven't won it, then you can kind of minimize the impact in your mind if you just say, okay, all I really have to do is get ready for this next point.
Yeah, that's it. So with the 25%, I'm wondering if that kind of goes down depending on what activity you're doing, whether it's physical or a mental activity like schoolwork or university work as well.
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, I think anybody who's been in university and has finished their finals understands the feeling that that maybe a vacuum hose has been attached to their head, sucking all of their brains out. I mean, there's so much energy
I can relate
used.
To that.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of a quarter or a semester, yes, then you feel like you've really been drained. And there are a lot of people who, after they get done with finals, will have a really good 12 hours of sleep the next day to make up for that. So
I found that happened to me, and I did a big sleep, and the next day I was still probably even more tired than I was before. And sometimes I find that after university tests, or even with swimming, I used to be a swimmer. I used to swim 8 times a week, and then we'd have a break, and then my body would get sick. I don't know if that's anything to do with the brain or not, but possibly.
Well, there's a major connection between good recovery and overall health, mental and physical health. So one of the processes that happens in sleep is that your brain actually dumps toxins. So when you're sleeping well, then your brain is also going to be cleaner. You're going to have, it's not going to be retaining these toxins. So, here's an interesting thing. So I've recently been really getting into wearable tech. And so with my Apple Watch, I'm now tracking my sleep quality. And so there's a month of sleep right there tracked. And now here's my year, and you can see how, you can see how well, you can't see it so well, but you can see it very gradually going up.
Yeah,
so
you can see that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I started with an average of 70% quality sleep, and now this month I'm up to 75%. And that has
5%.
made, it's amazing what that 5% has done. I'm feeling so much better than I did before I really started tracking my sleep. And,
So
you
what
know,
ways do you feel better in?
just I think I have a lot more clarity, more relaxed, um, uh, less likely to react negatively to things. I'm also finding that I'm having more patience with my students and better able to observe, where it is that I need to work with them immediately. So, um, and then another thing was happening. I was averaging way under 6 hours a night of sleep, which really is not healthy. And this is something that we there's this myth that somehow you're brave and strong if you can, sleep way less than 6 hours and it makes you better than the other humans. But really, it's a lie. It's not really the truth. And we really do need, at least 7 hours of sleep. And
Yeah.
most people, their best sleep is going to be between 7 and 8 hours a night. So I'm working actually very hard to get my sleep up to 7 hours a night on average. Um, let me look at my current data here. So sleep duration. So you can see, there's my sleep amounts, and then it's going slowly up, and then let me see what my slippery phone. As my phone turned into a fish for a second there, and I was trying to jump back in the water. So, okay, let me see. So this month I'm averaging 6 hours and 16 minutes of sleep.
Oh, you're improving.
And I'm improving. It was under 6 hours, but I'm really, so I find that, so now I'm taking 45-minute naps in the middle of the day so that I can get my time up, because I just don't seem to be able to sleep at night as much as I'd like to. So
what was the average before when it was on 70%?
When what was my average?
So you went from 70 to 75%.
Right. And my duration, let me see, in what month was that? In January, I was averaging 5 hours and 46 minutes of sleep.
So half an hour for 5%.
Half an hour.
It's probably not going to be
linear. It's not exactly linear, and it's amazing how sometimes you might have a higher quantity of sleep, but a lower quality. So there's not a direct impact from one to the other, but it is important to get both the quality and the quantity.
I've heard that too much sleep in the night causes bad dreams, but also you to be moody the next day.
Yes, and I'm gonna assume that they're talking about more than 9 hours. So
yeah, I think so.
No, I don't think anyone would argue with getting 8 hours of sleep. That's that's not going to be too much. But
sorry.
Go ahead.
So another interesting stat that we came across was 60% of your brain activity is affected by the eyes.
Yes, and if we take that stat and then we bring it back into the sleep, lately I've been digging into the actual university research of studies in relation to sleep and reaction time. So people's reaction times are slowed if they're not sleeping well, and also their ability to make decisions under duress is also negatively affected. So that's something that was only recently really proven, and the design of the experiment the study was something that was difficult for researchers. So I don't remember all the details for that, but when you're sleeping well, you're going to have a faster response time. You're going to make better decisions. You're also going to have better coordination, balance, so there's this whole, positive syndrome of experiential, of experience of vision that you're going to have when you're sleeping better. So, and then the fact that 60% of what your brain does is related to vision goes to show, the interaction, the really strong interaction towards that and your visual ability.
Yeah, so that probably brings it back to a couple of points there. So as with a player, especially a tournament player, and you're playing long matches and you're not sleeping well, that's probably going to make you more exhausted earlier on in the match, especially on a tight match. And going back to a coach, if you're having long hours, you're probably focusing less on the detail when you go to the later lessons in the day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, it goes to show. I think that's a great comment. And, we want to be detail oriented to some extent. So, because, if we as coaches are looking at the wrong thing, or we're making a bad decision about where to start with a player, and then we have to back up and say, oh, looks like that's not working, we're going to have to try something else. For the moment, credibility is diminished, a little bit. I mean, so how much our student trusts us, will tell a lot about that. But if you're meeting somebody for the first time and 3 times in the lesson you say, oh wow, I guess that didn't work, then you're running the risk of not having that lesson with that person ever again. So it is important to stop and really collect ourselves and be detail oriented in how we're observing our students, and having the peace of mind and the presence to be able to wait until we really are sure what we're seeing before saying something. Definitely all of that is going to be helped by better sleep as well.
Yeah, on that note, I don't think it's a bad thing to be a problem solver as a coach rather than to be the person that knows the answer or the god of tennis. What I'm trying to say here is if you got a student and you're trying to talk it through with them and you're trying to work it out, and you're obviously going to be hopefully closer to the answer with the knowledge that you have, help them get to the answer if it's something that you haven't come across before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's helped by having a better state of mind to have the patience and the tone to,
That's right.
To patiently wait and help them discover that answer. So that is really important. And recently I've come to the realization, though, that I've been putting the cart before the horse. So with visual training for tennis, I've been looking at it through the eyes, and then the brain is the thing that the eyes connect to. But then now I'm realizing that even from the beginning of every lesson, I'm actually doing a lot more with people's mind and their brain before we even get to the vision. I'll give you an example. I had a first lesson with a guy named Frank, and he was a hockey player and a basketball player, and he played college baseball. So he's one of those athletes you want on your court because he's going to understand things, right? So the first thing that happens is, we get on the court, and he's already overthinking things. So, I've asked him, what are your expectations? What's going to make this a great lesson? And he says, well, if you give me all the fundamentals. And so I said, all right, that's fine. But I think what's going to happen actually is you're going to discover one thing at a time. But in the early part of the lesson, I had to show him that he was overthinking things, overanalyzing things, trying to come up with procedures, first step, second step, third step in his mind for how to execute the shot. And I'm like, well, no, it's actually much simpler than what you're trying to do. So it's really as simple as find the ball, right, and make contact with it here. And then so many problems are solved with that simplicity. So I end up teaching adults how to play, because they come to the lesson with this idea that they're going to work, they're going to analyze, they're going to study, they're going to memorize, and they're trying to use all these different modalities of thought that don't even really work. Yeah. And so here's something I say often in a first lesson. I say, okay, let's see. You're over there working really hard, and I'm over here playing around, right? And then you're going to pay me. I'm like, to me, that just sounds really unfair. It just sounds like a ridiculous transaction. So what I'm trying to get you to do is to learn to play tennis. But the problem is you're over there working so hard, you can't play.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
And I also tell them, hey, I'm doing this because I'm trying to avoid work. So if you're over there working really hard, and I'll accept your money guilt free, but so people come at it with the wrong mindset. Now here's an interesting thing that happened that really changed my mind, and it's very strange because I'm not always enamored with the integrity of scientists, because I think there's a really important ethical question of not can we do something, but should we do something? So what I'm about to tell you, I do not endorse, but even though I don't endorse it, I'm willing to learn from it. And here's what happened. Some scientists got some stem cells, and they grew a brain from stem cells. They got some brain tissue, and they grew a brain, and they were blown away when it spontaneously grew its own pair of eyes that could detect light. And that blew my mind. And so I went and I stopped and I thought about that for a long time. And I'm like, okay, let's see. They were starting with a brain, and then unbeknownst to them, there was going to be this effect that was going to happen where a visual system was going to be developed, and it took them completely by surprise. But what it did is it made me realize, okay, wait a second. I've been looking so much at the visual system, but in reality, I've been teaching people first to use their brain properly, and then using their eyes as maybe the primary way of doing that. So now, instead of that, now what I'm doing is I'm moving a lot more towards the neuroscience, the brain science. So I'm working on developing a new brand, and it's going to be something along the lines of BrainCoach, BrainSports, something along those lines. I'm playing around with different word combinations, but I'm going to be coming at it a lot more from a brain function standpoint into the vision rather than the other way around.
Well, that makes sense. That's trying to find the primary cause. And I think that's a big thing with coaching in general. I see, and sometimes I feel myself doing it, and we're picking out the thing that looks like the cause, but it's more of the effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's well said. All right. So What can we talk about? Because we advertise this to be 30 minutes. We can go a little bit longer. I don't mind. What do you think people are
Yeah,
going
we
to
might
want
do
to
10 more
know?
minutes.
Yeah, we can go 10
Yeah,
more
so
minutes, but I want to
I
make
think the
this as
big question
practical.
is,
Yeah, go ahead.
the big one is probably how do we make this practical in terms of the tennis world? Like, how does it help players?
Hmm.
Coaches always want to know how they can help their players, and also how can they help themselves be better coaches
Right.
with their brain, and as you said, connecting to the visual part of it. And we've answered a bit of that,
Right.
but yeah. So what could they do consciously to practice?
Well, I think the first thing is reduce the anxiety of your student. Um, when when somebody, you should assume that no matter who it is, that when you are having a first lesson with someone and they're not familiar with your site, okay, then here's what's happening for them. They're driving to a new place to be in a new environment to meet a new person. And so,
Yeah,
even if they're the coolest person on the planet, they're going to have a slightly elevated anxiety level. And anxiety, it is well proven that higher levels of anxiety block new learning. So your first job is to put your person at ease. Greet them with a smile. You know, reassure them that everything's going to be fine. They're going to have fun, and that you're interested in what they want. So I start one of my early questions in every lesson is, what's going to make this lesson awesome for you today? So that they can tell me
yeah,
what are they expecting? What do they want out of the lesson? So then I listen to them, and then I do what I'm doing, and I target what I'm doing to what they said. Um, and they're generally pretty astonished when they're rallying in the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So that's pretty astonishing to them. The next thing is, make it fun, because Greg Patton, who I'm not related to, but he's a legendary coach of Boise State, and he was also a USTA national coach for many years. He coached Sampras, Agassi, Chang, Wheaton, Courier, those guys when he was a national coach. And he recently shared some research that that myelin acquisition is improved by 90% when people are enjoying the activity. So, there's so many people who love to argue about the 10,000 hour rule, which is not real. The 10,000 hour rule is not real. Okay. But all of these things, when you open yourself up to miracles and fun and enjoyment, then people learn much faster when you create that kind of culture. So that's again also a brain thing. And how do you do that? I mean, it's with your enthusiasm, and it's with helping your student to succeed in small ways at first, and then increasingly, quickly improving at greater and greater levels to where they actually become sort of shocked at how well they're doing.
well, the one thing I like to base my one around there when I'm teaching people to play whatever level is to base it around the game of tennis, not learning how to do a forehand or a backhand. And they are, but they're playing tennis and not isolating a shot or two,
Mm-hmm.
unless it's a serve, and then just playing and modifying it so they can do it and then building them up step by step. And the other thing that I find when people turn up, especially adults, let's just focus on adults, they turn up and almost every single one of them will say, probably about 95% of them, this is going to be embarrassing. You're going to be laughing at me. That's the
Yeah.
first thing they say almost every time.
Yes, no, that's a great comment. And so, yes, I find that a very high percentage of people who come onto the court are expecting me to judge them somehow. So, yeah, so it's really interesting. Oh, hey, by the way, I haven't played in 20 years. I'm like, well, I don't care. right? I mean, because yeah, that's fine. Don't worry. We're gonna get you up to speed. Because they're prefacing it to make sure that their ego is guarded well.
Just in
Um,
case they do fail.
yeah. Another very important thing, and we've talked about this numerous times. So people who've been watching us, over the last year, will have heard this before. But nearly 100% of the people that I'm meeting on the tennis court are not seeing the ball come out of the strings of the opponent's racket. They think they are. They imagine that they might be, or no one ever told them. And so then what they do is they're picking up the ball somewhere in its flight, and it might not even be until after it's crossed the net, maybe slightly before. But they miss so much information that their brain could gather if their full attention was on seeing the ball coming out of the strings of the opponent. And so I say nearly 100% just to be safe, because I'm pretty sure it's 100% of the people. And that includes, people who are brand new beginners, but it also includes people who are nearly a collegiate level play. And their games go way up. I mean, it's really amazing how much better they're able to respond to the ball when their full attention is on seeing it come out of the strings.
And just a little plug for anyone doing tactical training, especially the Art of Winning guys, Sterling and Dan, with the expectation where I'm going to be a bad player the first time I play, or because I haven't played in a while. I think the expectation people get at least when they haven't played a lot, is that they need to rally continuously for ages. So I just tell them the stat that 70% of rallies finish between 1 and 4 shots. And then when they get that bit of information in, then they relax. And so what I'm trying to say is, it's with the brain, it's also how you think, which will help your functionality and also your visual to focus on the right thing.
Yes, absolutely. And I would like to apply that in 2 different ways. And I also want to, well, at first I want to poo-poo a certain notion that people say, and they say this, and it's wrong. It's missing the point. Oh, well, are you trying to say that people should try to finish the point in 2 shots? Well, yes and no. But really, the most important thing to do is to make your first 2 shots. If you make your first 2 shots, you are going to be very difficult to beat.
Yeah.
So that's really huge. Now, but then on the other side of that, if you're playing in 2 intelligent shots that are meant to A, put your opponent out of position, and then B, put them under pressure with the second shot, then you're going to have an advantage over the player who's just sort of dumbly making 2 shots. So having 2 shots that have an intention, like a serve out wide, followed by a ground stroke deep to the other corner, well, a lot of great things have happened. One, you've moved them there, then you've moved them there, and so they're moving a lot. And you've pinned them deep to the cross court, where they're much more highly likely to hit a short ball to you, and you're liable to be able to win the point on the next shot if you executed those first 2 well. And you also don't have to take tremendous risks in placing these shots in those places. They're actually safe shots to hit. They just have intentionality behind them. But you get a lot of really strange arguments from people who think that that first strike tennis means going blindly for winners all the time, and so it's a bad argument.
Yeah, and you got to see the whole picture, but it comes back to knowing what to think and how to think about it, which really helps you clear up your mind, but also what to focus on with your eyes, I guess.
Yeah, and see, so that's the interaction right there too, is that you get brain, eyes, mind. because now you have to start to look for patterns, what's working, what's not working. And that's where the problem solving comes in. Hey, my opponent's hitting this one particular shot that's giving me trouble. How do I stop him or her from doing that? Or when they do that, how can I mitigate that with my shot? Here's an example. In general, most players have weaker backhands than they do forehands. This is the most common problem in all of tennis, the weak backhand. So with my players, what I do, my first solution is I tell them this: take every single backhand that is hit to you and hit it deep cross court to their backhand, presuming they're also right-handed. And so the decision making is really simple, because you're going to do every one like that. And it sets them up to at least equalize things, because if they take that backhand and they go up the middle or to the forehand, then they've just given away a really big advantage to the opponent. So it's one really simple thing to do, a simple target, a simple execution. And if they can just learn that one thing, which isn't really that hard to do, then it makes a very big difference in their game.
And all they have to focus on then is the execution of doing that over time.
Yeah, I mean, it might take some time, but having an intentionality is better than not having an intentionality.
Yeah, well, having a target's much easier to improve on than having it could go anywhere, and then trying to improve that way. It's hard to really focus on what the improvement is.
Yes, and that's again a mind thing. And then what happens is, then based on success or failure, then you come back to maybe having an anxiety issue again, or maybe there's an eye skill that needs to be trained in order to be able to hit a target. So yeah, the training of the imagination so that people can hit, because when your eyes are at contact, you can't directly see your target, but you have to geospatially know that it's there. So you're hitting to a place that you can't see until you look. Yeah. So anyway, I hope that was practical. Are we wrapping up now, or are we going to keep going?
We can quickly wrap up. But I just want to kind of put the last piece of the puzzle, and that was breathing. So,
okay,
what will breathing do in regards to all the information that we've talked about today?
Well, another key piece, part of the reason why your brain needs water is because water is H2O, right? So water is a primary way to get oxygen into the brain. So, but then breathing also is really important, because that facilitates better blood flow, right? And so better circulation, better blood flow, reduced heart rate. So the more deeply you're breathing, the more you can reduce your heart rate. And and I think in a future talk we can start to talk about burgeoning studies in what's called HRV, heart rate variability, which is really a cutting edge thing happening. And there's some new techniques that are coming out where people get in touch more with what is their heart rate telling them, because the heart communicates to the brain about 100 times more often than the brain communicates to the heart.
Wow.
And but when there's some intentionality there for the brain, for you to use your brain mindfully to communicate to your heart, then there's some pretty significant inroads that can be made there. So we'll save that for another time. But breathing, has many, many positive good things, but also nerve cells really do need oxygen. So if you're feeling nervous, then getting more oxygen is a really great way to calm yourself down.
Yeah. Well, that probably explains why I couldn't breathe when I got too nervous in a swimming race.
Mm. Well, yeah, and that, yeah. So, here, I'll leave you with this. So I know that feeling of you're trying to breathe, but you feel like you can't breathe, right? So you're trying to, I'm trying to take a deep breath, right? And then you feel like your chest is locked up. There's a strategy that works tremendously well, and that is blowing all the air out.
Yeah.
So part of the reason why you can't get more air in is because your lungs are already full, and you can't. And what you really need to do is exhale. So if you go, you can't help but take a deep breath after that. It's been kind of smoky here. We're having a lot of fires in NorCal, so you can tell now that I've been breathing a lot of smoky air. But
yeah, I understand about the fires.
You blow the air out, and then it makes room for you to take a deep breath, and that can be the key to getting yourself unlocked. But yeah, I can definitely relate to that feeling, like, you want to take a deep breath, but you feel like you can't.
Which is probably another reason why we should breathe out when we're hitting the shot.
Yes. When you breathe out, you get better eccentric movement of your arm. So
then it might help us breathe later through the point as well.
Yeah. So you can get 5 to 7 more miles an hour on ground strokes, and 7 to 10 more miles an hour on serves if you exhale while you're hitting. So all of these things are sort of brain, mind, body, eyes, all connected. Everything's connected somehow.
Yeah, very interesting stuff, and you'd have to probably speak for weeks on weeks to get all the information out.
Yeah, we can't do it all tonight, but yeah, I mean, I think it's fun though to just try to get a couple of nuggets out there. I hope anybody watching, picked up 1 or 2 things that they can apply immediately.
Yeah.
So, and then, you might be interested in checking out Visual Training for Tennis, the 4th edition, which is out now, and it's available on Amazon. So check that out. Also, I have a visual training course that's available, and that's $47, and it's a series of over 30 videos, most of which are like 3 to 7 minutes long. But there are towards the end, there's some longer ones that go into a little more detail, a little more advanced.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, just share that around, and I'll get onto them.
Okay, awesome.
All right, so yeah, we'll wrap up. We'll wrap up now. So how should we wrap up?
How should we wrap up? So Ryan, to you, what do you think are the 2 or 3 most important things that we talked about?
I'd say just I'm trying to recall it all. Like it's a lot of information, but
yeah, don't recall it all. So here's what I do at the end of every lesson, and this is a brain thing too. Okay, so at the end of a lesson, I ask my student, what's the most important thing that you learned during this time? And they start thinking too hard, and I was like, no, just what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Because generally the first thing is the most important thing. So what is the first thing?
Looking after your brain with hydration and sleeping.
Yes.
And increasing your sleeping hours.
Yeah. It's ridiculously fundamental. So that's a great place to start. All right. So what's the second most important thing?
The second most important thing is to then, I'd say probably the visual, like from that, then knowing when to focus and where to focus and what to watch.
Okay.
And all that stuff. And then the third thing would be, I guess, how to think about things, how to think about things as a coach and how to help players think about things in the right way. So those are my 3 quick takeaways. I don't know if that'd be my answer if I thought about it in detail, but those are my 3 quick ones.
No, it's really funny how your brain comes up with the three really the important things. I mean, you might kick yourself later and say, oh, I should have said this, but in the moment, those are three good things. So, this is, I think it's also a best practice in teaching is allowing people to do that. And then they can process later and they might come back to you and say, oh, you know how last time I said the third thing was this? Well, really it was this. And it's like, okay, that's fine. I mean, that's all learning too. So anyway, all right. It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
All right. And we'll do this again soon.
Yeah, sounds good, everyone. Comment below if any more topics you want us to drill down on. So we're looking forward to next time.
All right, very good. Take good care.
Okay.